You know when I married Sarah? Yeah, not Susan or Jessica, Sarah, because her mom was obsessed with French culture. I thought I hit the jackpot. I mean, who wouldn't? She was the complete package, smart, ambitious, beautiful, and let's not forget, totally out of my league. For 18 glorious months, I believed I was the luckiest guy alive. Turns out, I was more like the luckiest guy in a rigged casino. It all started pretty innocently. We were two broke college kids in love, sharing ramen noodles and dreaming about a future where we didn't have to steal ketchup packets from fast food places to stock our pantry. Then Sarah decided she wanted to go back to school for her master's in international relations. Fancy, right? She said it was her dream, and I wanted to be the supportive husband, the modern-day Prince Charming with a 9-to-5 and a student loan of my own. So, like a complete idiot, I agreed to help her with tuition. We didn't have any money, who does at 26? But my mom, bless her practical, no-nonsense soul, offered a solution. Sarah could take out a loan in her name, and we'd cover the monthly payments together. Fair enough, right? Teamwork makes the dream work, or so I thought. Fast forward 6 months, Sarah's knee-deep in classes, and I'm knee-deep in overtime hours to keep up with the bills. It wasn't perfect, but we were making it work, until the incident. I came home late one Friday night, exhausted from work, only to find that Sarah wasn't there. No big deal, right? She's probably at the library cramming for finals or something. Wrong. I called her, no answer. Texted her, still nothing. My anxiety morphed into suspicion, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. When she finally walked through the door at 1 a.m., smelling like a nightclub and a bad decision, I knew something was up. I asked her where she'd been, and she gave me the classic, "Oh, just out with friends." Yeah, sure, and I'm Elon Musk in disguise. But I let it slide. I told myself I was overthinking it. Turns out, I wasn't overthinking enough. After that night, things started feeling off. You know when you have that gut feeling, but you ignore it because you're afraid of what you might find? Yeah, I was living in that denial zone, clinging to the idea that Sarah and I were still the team we promised to be on our wedding day. Then came the Instagram incident. Oh, you've never heard of it? Let me enlighten you. Sarah posted a picture from her study session, except it wasn't at the library. It was at some rooftop bar called Skyline Lounge, and guess what? Her study group included one particularly charming guy named Alex. Who the hell is named Alex these days? He looked like he walked straight out of a cologne ad, perfect hair, a blazer indoors, and that smug "I steal wives for fun" grin. I confronted her about it, and she laughed it off. Oh, Alex? He's just a classmate. We were discussing foreign policy. Relax, it's nothing. Discussing foreign policy at a bar over martinis? Call me old-fashioned, but I didn't realize international diplomacy required a happy hour. Still, I let it go. Why? Because I'm an idiot, and because I trusted her. Trust, what a joke, right? Fast forward a couple of weeks, and Sarah started getting busy. Not normal, I have homework busy, I'm talking, sorry, I'm at the library again busy. Except the library must have changed its hours because she was getting home later and later. One night, she didn't get home until 2 a.m. Her excuse? We were doing a group project, and I lost track of time. Sarah, sweetie, you weren't drafting a UN resolution. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperate times call for desperate measures. The next time she said she was at the library, I decided to test her claim. I drove to campus, parked outside, and waited. I felt like the worst kind of person, until I saw her leave the library with Alex, laughing, touching his arm. My blood pressure skyrocketed faster than her tuition fees. But hey, maybe it was innocent, right? Wrong. The next day, I woke up determined, determined to get answers, determined to stop being the doormat Sarah apparently thought I was. So, when she walked into the kitchen all cheerful, pretending nothing had happened, I decided it was time to burst that little bubble. "Good morning," she said, sipping her overpriced oat milk latte. "How was your night?" "Oh, it was great," I said, not even trying to hide the sarcasm. "Just sat in the car, thinking about life, you know, watching people leave the library." Her face froze mid-sip. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice an octave higher than usual, classic guilty behavior. "Oh, I don't know, Sarah. Maybe it means I saw you with Alex last night. You know, your very touchy, very flirty classmate. The one you've apparently been pulling all-nighters with?" Her eyes widened, and for a second, she looked genuinely panicked. But then, like clockwork, the tears started. "It's not what you think," she wailed, grabbing a tissue like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "It was a mistake. We were just what? Conducting peace talks in his back seat?" I shot back, my voice louder than I intended. "Do you take me for an idiot, Sarah?" She broke down into full-on sobs. "It only happened once, I swear. I was drunk, and I didn't mean for it to happen. I love you, not him." Oh, the classics, the one-time mistake defense, the "I was drunk" excuse, and, of course, the "I love you" Hail Mary. It was like she'd pulled it straight from the cheater's handbook. "You love me?" I laughed bitterly. "Do you know how twisted that sounds? You're sitting here telling me you love me while I'm literally funding your future, and you're out there playing international relations with some wannabe Bond villain." She didn't have a response for that. Instead, she just kept crying, repeating, "I'm sorry," like it was a magical spell that would fix everything. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. At that moment, I realized something. I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt humiliated. Here I was, working overtime to support us, while she was out living her best double life. And the worst part? I'd let it happen. I stood up, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know what, Sarah? I'm done. You can cry, you can apologize, but I'm not sticking around to be the guy you cheat on and still expect to bankroll your dreams." "But what about the loan?" she gasped, her tears momentarily forgotten. "You promised you'd help me." "Yeah, I did, when I thought we were a team. But guess what? Teams don't work when one player is scoring for the other side. Call it petty, call it whatever you want, but I'm done paying for your education. Figure it out." Her jaw dropped, but I didn't stick around to hear the rest. I grabbed my keys and walked out, slamming the door behind me. My mind was racing. I had no idea how I was going to handle the financial side of things, but one thing was clear: Sarah wasn't getting another dime from me. A few days passed, and Sarah went from the sobbing, apologetic wife to something entirely different, an entitled, self-righteous diva. It was like she had processed her guilt, chewed it up, and spit it back out as pure arrogance. I came home one evening, still exhausted from work, and found her waiting for me in the living room, arms crossed, head tilted, and that look that said she was about to deliver a TED Talk on why she was always right. "We need to talk," she announced. Oh, boy. Those are never good words. I dropped my bag by the door and sighed. "About what, Sarah? The fact that you cheated on me, or the fact that I'm somehow still stuck living under the same roof as you?" She didn't even flinch. "No, about the loan. You can't just back out of paying. You promised." I blinked. Was this real life? "You're joking, right, Sarah? In what universe do you think I owe you anything after what you did?" Her eyes narrowed, and that's when it started, the transformation. The apologies were officially dead and buried. Sarah 2.0 had entered the chat. "Because," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "you're my husband, and husbands are supposed to take care of their wives. Or did I miss the part of our vows where you got to bail the second things got hard? I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a normal laugh, either. It was the kind of laugh you let out when someone says something so absurd that your brain can't fully process it. Hard? Sarah, hard would be us struggling to pay bills together. Hard would be us fighting off student loans as a team. You banging Alex in his car doesn't qualify as hard, that's just betrayal. She rolled her eyes like I was the one being unreasonable. You're being dramatic. I already said I was sorry, but that doesn't change the fact that you have a responsibility to me. If I don't finish my master's, how am I supposed to build a career? Do you really want to ruin my future because of one stupid mistake? And there it was, the entitlement, the audacity. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sarah, your future stopped being my responsibility the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. You want to build a career? Great. Figure it out. You want me to fund it while you're sneaking off with Alex? Not a chance. Her voice rose, and she pointed a perfectly manicured finger at me. Oh, so you're just going to leave me high and dry after everything I've sacrificed for this marriage? I stared at her, dumbfounded. What exactly have you sacrificed, Sarah? Your dignity. Because you didn't seem to have much of that left when you were. Don't you dare finish that sentence, she snapped, her face turning red. This is your fault, you know. You're the one who pushed me to this. I couldn't believe my ears. Excuse me? My fault? How the hell is your cheating my fault? She folded her arms and smirked. Oh, please. You've been so busy with work that you've practically ignored me for months. What did you expect me to do? Sit at home and wait for you to remember I exist? Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. That was it, the final straw. I felt my blood boiling, but I stayed calm. Too calm. You're unbelievable, Sarah. Truly. Not only do you cheat, but you somehow find a way to make it my fault. Bravo. Honestly, I think you missed your calling as a politician. She glared at me, but I wasn't done. Let me make this crystal clear, I'm done. Done with you, done with the lies, and done paying for your education. Go ask Alex for the money, because you're not getting another dime from me. You can't do that, she shouted. You're my husband. You're obligated to support me. No, Sarah, I said, grabbing my keys. I was obligated to support the wife I married, not the stranger you've turned into. Good luck with your masters. And with that, I walked out, leaving her standing there, fuming. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of texts from Sarah. Most of them were an unhinged mix of guilt trips, threats, and pleas. Gems like, "You're really going to throw away 18 months of marriage over one mistake? If you don't pay for the loan, my parents will sue you for breach of promise. You'll regret this when you see me succeed without you." It was honestly impressive how she managed to play victim, hero, and villain all at once, a real triple threat. But the real kicker came later that afternoon when she sent me a message that said, "If you don't want to pay for my education, fine. But you're not walking away without consequences. I'm filing for divorce, and I'll make sure you pay alimony too." Alimony? Oh, this was rich. Sarah, who spent most of our marriage treating me like her personal ATM, now wanted me to pay her to leave. The audacity was almost admirable. I knew I needed a lawyer, fast. So, I called my buddy Jake. Jake was 37 years old, and we'd been friends since college. He wasn't just any lawyer, he was the guy you call when you want to burn the bridge, salt the earth, and make sure nothing grows back. Jake was thrilled to take my case. "Oh, this is going to be fun," he said, already jotting down notes as I recounted the saga. The first thing Jake told me was that Sarah's alimony threat was laughable. You've been married for what? A year and a half? She doesn't qualify for long-term support. Plus, you're not exactly rolling in dough. Judges don't hand out alimony to grad students who can't keep their pants on. Good to know, I said, relieved. But what about the loan? Can she rope me into paying that somehow? Jake smirked. Not if it's in her name, which it is. Your biggest win here was making sure you never co-signed anything. Her fancy master's degree is her problem, not yours. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal paperwork, uncomfortable conversations, and one particularly awkward encounter where Sarah showed up at our apartment to grab her things and accidentally left behind a stack of bills for me to see. Subtle, right? But the real show came during our first mediation session. Sarah walked in like she was the CEO of moral superiority, armed with a list of demands. She wanted full control of the apartment lease, which, fun fact, was in my name, a lump sum payment to compensate her for the time she invested in the marriage, and ongoing support to help her finish her master's. When the mediator asked me how I wanted to respond, I just leaned back in my chair and said, I think we'll let the courts decide. Jake gave me a subtle nod, the kind that says, don't worry, I've got this. Sarah's lawyer, clearly less prepared than Jake, tried to argue that I was morally and financially obligated to support her. After all, her lawyer said, he promised to help fund her education. That's a verbal contract. Jake didn't even flinch. Verbal contracts don't hold up in court when the other party commits fraud. He glanced at Sarah, then added, and by fraud, I mean cheating on my client with someone named Alex in a car. Shall I elaborate? Sarah's face turned red, and her lawyer fumbled with some papers. It was glorious. In the end, the court sided with me. The apartment lease stayed in my name, Sarah got her things and nothing else, and the loan? 100% her responsibility. As for alimony, let's just say the judge laughed when her lawyer brought it up. Walking out of the courtroom that day felt like shedding a 120-pound weight. Sarah gave me one last glare before storming off, but I didn't care. I was free. Now, I'm sitting here, writing this, sipping a beer, and finally feeling like myself again. Lesson learned, never mix love, money, and people named Alex. But after the divorce was finalized, you'd think that would have been the end of it. Oh, no. Enter Sarah's parents, the masters of passive-aggressive guilt trips. It started with a voicemail from her mother, a woman whose voice could rival a foghorn. You're ruining her future, she exclaimed. Sarah worked so hard to get where she is, and now, thanks to you, she's stuck with a mountain of debt. Is that the kind of man you want to be remembered as? Someone who ruins lives? The irony was almost poetic. Someone who ruins lives, coming from the family that apparently raised a cheater. I ignored the message, but the calls kept coming. Sarah's dad even tried a different tactic, sending me a polite but equally manipulative email. Son, it read, we're disappointed. We thought you'd be the kind of man to stand by his commitments, even in tough times. Real men don't turn their backs on responsibility. I couldn't help but laugh. Responsibility? Sarah had plenty of responsibility with Alex, didn't she? But the real highlight was my mom. When I told her about their guilt-tripping campaign, she just smirked and said, Sweetheart, this is exactly why I told you to make sure the loan was in her name and her family. She's their responsibility now, not ours. Mom didn't just stop there. Let them whine, she added. If you had co-signed that loan, she wouldn't just have taken your dignity, she'd have taken your credit score too. Be grateful I have more sense than both of you combined. Touché, Mom. Touché. I thought that was the end of it, but Sarah wasn't done yet. One evening, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, looking both furious and smug, a combo only she could pull off. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me like she still lived there. "Oh, this should be good," I muttered, shutting the door behind her. "What now, Sarah? Did Alex's cologne sponsorship fall through?" She ignored my jab and launched into what I can only describe as a TED talk for the delusional. "You might think you've washed your hands of me," she began, pacing dramatically, "but a real man, a true gentleman, supports his wife, even after the marriage ends." I raised an eyebrow. "You do realize the word ex-wife exists for a reason, right?" She huffed and crossed her arms. "It doesn't matter. A decent, honorable man wouldn't leave me stranded like this. I sacrificed so much for us. I deserve support." I leaned against the counter, trying to suppress a laugh. "Sarah, let me get this straight. You're saying that even though you cheated on me, lied to me, and used me, I'm still obligated to pay your bills? Does Alex know you feel this way, or is he too busy not funding your education?" Her face turned red, and for a moment, she was speechless. Then she exploded. "You're so petty. Why can't you just be an adult about this? Do you even know what women go through when men abandon them?" "Abandon them?" I repeated, incredulous. "Sarah, you abandoned me the second you got into his car. Don't twist this into some sob story where you're the victim." She glared at me, realizing her little speech wasn't working. "You know what? Forget it. I don't need your help. I'll figure it out on my own." "Good," I said, opening the door for her. "Because you're not getting a cent from me. Have a nice life, Sarah." As she stormed out, I couldn't help but feel relieved. It was finally over. No more guilt trips, no more manipulative speeches, and no more Sarah. In the end, Sarah and her family's theatrics didn't faze me. Sure, the whole thing was a disaster, but it taught me a valuable lesson. And as for Sarah? Word on the street is she dropped out of her program and moved back in with her parents. Alex? Who knows, probably off charming someone else's wife. As for me, I'm doing just fine. I've got my freedom, my credit score, and a lifetime supply of sarcastic comebacks for anyone who tries to pull a Sarah on me again. Cheers to that.